Hello.
Hi.
So thank you guys for hanging out this afternoon. Thanks for coming to Talk About. We are having a fantastic time nerding out about conversation, the technology behind conversation, and how we all think about chatbots and computer conversation. And you'll hear us use that term a lot, computer conversation, because while chatbots are the party this year that everybody is super excited about, we think that we've reached, maybe an inflection point in computing, and where the tools for understanding natural language, be that typed natural language or spoken natural language, are at a point now where they can be used for all sorts of compelling experiences. It's important that both Sarah and I are up here today because we both represent the two equal halves of what we think about at Pullstring and what we think you guys should be thinking about when building bots, and that is the technical side and the creative side. And so, just a little bit of background about who we are.
I'm Sarah Wulfeck. I'm a creative director and writer at Pullstring. I was the head writer for Hello Barbie and for Hello Dreamhouse, which I'll be talking to you about soon, as well as a bunch of our other chatbots that we've got coming out soon. I'm a former digital agency creative director. I was a journalist for a while. I've done voiceover for video games. Please don't Google me. And yeah, just all around creative person. I represent a whole team of creative writers at Pullstring that I'll talk to you a little bit about more why we've specifically chosen those roles for that half of the company.
And yeah, I'm Lucas. So I hang out over on the engineering side of Pullstring, and I'm in charge of the group that writes our authoring system, basically, Pullstring Author. Also the core AI and machine learning groups that support our technology and the tools that we release. My background is at Pixar. Actually, a lot of folks at Pullstring have a Pixar heritage. The common thread that's been throughout my career is building technology to allow creative people to achieve their artistic vision. So it was animators and character riggers on movies in the early 2000s, and then for the past 5 years, it's been writers and folks who want to use the written word to do interactive fiction or non-linear narrative in all different contexts. And I think it's a particular type of craftsmanship that goes into developing technology that you mean to be used by a creative person. So we can talk more about that. But just a quick word about Pullstring itself. We're a venture-backed startup hanging out in downtown San Francisco. So if anybody else is around there, please come visit. We've been around since 2011. And so depending on how you count it, that's, maybe 150 person years that have been invested at this point in thinking about the technology and the art behind making interactive conversation. It's our goal to empower people to be able to communicate, to entertainment or commerce or any way that you'd want to communicate with natural language. That's what we want to empower you to do. I got it out. That's what I was trying to say. And so that's kind of our mission at Pullstring. And I want Sarah to take a minute now and talk a little bit about the kind of the creative process and how we approach building the things that we've built.
So we can do next. Yeah. So what's really been awesome as a creative person is that the Pullstring Author platform has been designed from day one with creative dialogue writers like myself involved in its development. We've had continuous input into the platform's evolution, and many of the additions to the software come from our creative writing process and are translated into engineering features. And so why did I say that we have screenwriting and acting and playwriting backgrounds as driving the bot process is because we're the kinds of people that know how to break that fourth wall. I mean, what we're doing when we're making these chatbots is we're scripting one side of the conversation, but then we have an improv partner, the user, who we don't really know what they're gonna say. We can predict it, but it takes a special kind of writing to really work with someone who's doing improv. We know how to ask deliberately worded questions to elicit responses, predict how people will engage and interact, create empathy, and turn human interactions into technical features and capabilities. So, I have to change my slide too. So we start with characters, narratives, stakes, motivations. We believe fully in starting from this place. We want to make things that are humanistic. We want to know who is the character and what's their specific way of speaking. What does the character want? What are the motivations of the bots? What's the character's relationship to the user? That's really important. You need to know who, whether it's a customer, whether it's somebody in an entertainment experience looking for some drama. We have to be able to know in advance, like, who are the people that we're really talking to when we author these chatbots. What should the character have an opinion on and response to? What should they ignore? And in tandem with that, how should the character respond to off-topic, inflammatory, non-narrative interjections? There have been some experiences that have come out this year where I think people haven't necessarily anticipated how mean people can be and the stuff that they say. So that's something that you have to think about before you even start the writing process, is how do you want your brand or your characters to handle those things? Because the worst thing in the world is to get caught off guard and not have responses or trigger responses that actually end up validating the horrible things that people might say to your chatbot. So let's talk about Barbie. Barbie is a bot. She just has a great plastic outfit. She's underneath all of that plastic. This is the most sophisticated, scripted, interactive, conversational experience ever published. Barbie has over 8,000 lines of dialogue. You can talk to her for 30 minutes and never hear the same thing. 30 hours. It's bigger than minutes, yes. 30 hours and never hear the same thing. She has hundreds of verbal games, conversations. She remembers things about you, what you want to be when you grow up, what your favorite color is, whether you have pets, whether you have two moms, one mom, a mom and a dad, like all kinds of things about you she remembers and knows. She's a friend. So that's what's kind of in her brain. Next slide. So the goals of Hello Barbie was to give the illusion of listening. We're not actually listening, but she has to behave like she's listening because this is a best friend. This is somebody who's sitting knee to knee on the floor of a child's room, talking and having conversations and being a presence in the child's life. So through a combination of her scripted dialogue, her authored word and phrase recognition, and the fact that it's a human recorded voice, she becomes real. So, yeah, she has a lot to say. This was really awesome as a writing experience to start with a character like this, because obviously Barbie is a 50-plus-year-old brand, so she has a huge history. She's had every single job we can think of, except chatbot writer. She's not had that yet. Maybe next year. But she's had all these jobs. She has family. She has pets. She has so much to talk about. This was really a challenge of, okay, how do we whittle that down into a script and something that we can really wrap all of our hands around and that makes sense conversationally in the back end, because my team and I had to go through and create all of these games and create all of these conversations and author them in a way that made sense, like a brain would make sense, hopefully, most people's brains. So what we've ended up creating was this sort of conversational neural network that lives in between and amongst all of her content. So like I mentioned, she has all these games, she has all these conversations. The real sort of humanness to this is, how does she get from one thing to the next? How does she go from horses to shoes without it sounding crazy and abrupt? So here's just a sort of example of this, is like, she'll have a conversation with you about horses. I remember you love horses. Let's talk about horses for a few minutes. At the end of that, we know to go for a line of, speaking of animals, what other pets do you have? And then we jump to that. Then, I've always wished my pets could go to school with me. Do you? Let's have a conversation about that. and so on and so forth. And so this was a massive, hundreds of chains of conversational sequences that we were creating to give her that notion of segue and humanness of being able to jump from topic to topic. So that's sort of one thing that we've built. The next thing that we've got coming out really soon is the Hello Dream House. Also, we're doing with Mattel. This is the smartest house ever. This house is better than all of your houses, I guarantee, because it has a slide that can turn into stairs and so forth. It can turn all the lights pink. It can turn all the lights blue. It has an elevator. It has a toilet that you can make say anything you want. It's crazy. It's incredible. It's also 4 feet wide. It's huge. But this is a voice-controlled, super smart mansion. And let's just take a second to think about the implications of this. We've been able to do this in this 4-foot plastic dollhouse, but what's next could be your house or your car or your washing machine. I mean, we can do this because we have now the capabilities to program and create voice command life. So let's go to the next thing. So the difference between this and Hello Barbie, Hello Barbie was a very persona-driven experience. She always had an agenda. She was marching through these conversations. This is your house, your rules. This is user-driven. The house is less of a having a character motivation and more of being able to sit there and take any command and any comments and any sort of desires that the user has for the house. So this is more of a passive experience and that the user drives it, but ultimately they feel in control because it's their house. So for this, like I said, for Hello Barbie, we created the conversational neural network. For this, we had to create what I call an anticipation network, which is a whole thousands of commands that you'd expect a fancy mansion like this to be able to do. So working with Mattel, we went room by room thinking about what are all the things that a kid would want to say and do about this room, the bathroom, the bedroom, the elevator, everything, and think about all of those things. In addition to just those turn the lights blue in the bathroom types of things, we also have imagination-driven command conversations for each one of those places of oh, I'm in the kitchen, let's make a pizza, and the house has a little conversation. Oh, what do you want on your pizza? Or you can order a pizza and set a timer, and then the pizza arrives a minute later because the doorbell rings and pizza's here, and it's very exciting. So the additional layer on top of everything else present is this mechanism of state persistence. Obviously, the house needs to know if the lights are on, if the lights are blue in one room, so that they can be turned pink later. So there's a whole bevy of behavior, what we call behaviors and conditions matching all of the things that are going on in the house, so the house always knows what state it is in at any given time. So that's just a little deep dive on both of these plastic bots, and I'm happy to talk more about the content and structuring of these or our other chatbots later, but I want to stress that inherent in our products and inherent in the DNA of what makes the Pullstring author so valuable is that it started from a place of character development, whether it's persona-driven or whether it's user command-driven. You have to start from a place of writing and rhetoric and narrative in order to really make sure that your chatbots, branded experiences, what have you, have that appeal that's human.
Cool. So I want to, now that we've talked about a physical embodiment of a chatbot, I want to bring it back to actual chatbots in the context that I think everybody here is thinking about today on platforms like Slack and Messenger and Skype, and talk a little bit about some of the things we've built that you can go play with right now in the kind of the chatbot arena using our platform. I'll start with Himani, Jesse's story, or we call her Jessie Himani. Just a quick straw poll, show of hands. Who here has played with Jessie out on Messenger, Skype. Okay, some of you. So if you haven't seen Jessie, she's your millennial friend who is just a hot mess and constantly needs advice from you. This was launched on Messenger, and she basically unspools the events of her life, whether she's looking for advice in her dating life or finding a new job or finding an apartment, in kind of a pseudo real-time experience. So you give her advice, she goes off and has the interview and then comes back and tells you how it went, that sort of thing. This was our first experience writing a non-speech driven project. So Sarah was talking about Barbie. Barbie was on the 8,000 to 9,000 line scale. Jessie is more of a medium size, which we would consider a large experience. Jessie is more of a medium-sized experience at about 3,000 lines. You can go try it yourself right now if you want. I won't get offended if you start looking at your phone for this reason. Go check out Jessie Himani on the Messenger store.
She's very needy, just so you know.
Yeah, she's a little snarky. There are some interesting technical challenges with Jessie. So first off, we were honored to be a launch partner along with Facebook for F8 and the Messenger platform rollout. Huge shout out to Mikhail and company for bringing us along on that ride. But one of the things about being a launch partner for any new technology is they are kind of laying the tracks in front of the train as you go. So the SDK is a bit of a moving target. The other thing was, as I mentioned, this was our first text-only experience. All you NLP nerds in the audience, you know that natural language understanding for speech recognition hypothesis is a very different animal than natural language understanding for written text. For example, with a speech hypothesis, you will never get a misspelled word, ever. You will frequently get exactly the wrong words, but you will never get something misspelled. In a text-based world, you have to figure out if the misspelling you got was just a misspelling, was being done because it's some sort of text speak. Millennials text very differently than I used to back in the BBS days. We had something called Leet Speak. It's kind of a version of that. Or it was a misspelling done for dramatic effect, like the word yes with 35 S's. Is that actually what was intended, or did they, just fat finger the keyboard? Figuring those things out actually takes some cleverness. But this was launched, and we got some great buzz around it, which led an ad agency named AKQA to find us. AKQA works with a company called Activision. Activision has a little-known video game franchise named Call of Duty. And so mid-summer this year, we launched this kind of alternate reality game with Call of Duty, the Infinite Warfare launch, which I'm not positive. I think it's coming out real soon, but isn't quite out yet. The idea is, in the current version of Call of Duty, players were able to piece together some sort of code, and then they would take that code to our bot, Lieutenant Reyes, who was pinned down under enemy fire and needed the code in order to, launch the counterattack, et cetera, et cetera. Now, in terms of scope, this was a small experience. This was about 400 lines of dialogue, and it was an event-based. It was an event, right? So it was meant to be up only for a small number of days. It was meant to drive Reddit bananas until they solved the code, and then it would go away. And if you find Lieutenant Reyes right now, you'll basically just get an autoresponder saying, the experience is over, thanks for playing. This was a huge success. This generated more media impressions than any other Call of Duty marketing campaign. We had over 6 million conversations day one on Messenger, and there was so much traffic that we had to work tightly with Facebook to build a custom provision solution just to handle the traffic for Call of Duty. And so now I'll jump ahead to last week when we just launched this bot. So anybody seen the TV show Humans? It's on Amazon Prime. Yeah, a couple folks. So the second season is coming out in a month or so. And this is Channel 4 UK is who originated the show. They wanted to do a viral marketing campaign so the basic premise of the show is there are these sort of androids they call synths, as in synthetic humans. And the synths, to varying degrees, start to develop human consciousness, and they start to come online. They wanted a marketing campaign where the synths are supposedly being recalled because of this reason, and there are actually, right now today, tractor trailers driving around London, which is no mean feat given congestion pricing and everything else that goes on in Soho, driving around London saying that they are synth collection vans. And there are adverts in the Evening Standard, and basically the whole point of all this media is to drive people to chat with the Persona Synthetics Facebook page, which you, again, should all go try right now, Persona Synthetics. And this is it's a scene basically in the world of humans where you help a synth who's kind of coming online and starting to experience emotion. So that just launched last week. It's been getting some great critical review. And it's on the small to medium side. It's 750 lines of dialogue. Why am I telling you about all this stuff? This is a big week for us at Pullstring. On Tuesday, we went into wide release with our platform, and that is the exact platform and the exact set of tools that Sarah used to build Hello Barbie, that we used to build Lieutenant Reyes, that we used to build all of our previous iOS apps and all the marketing campaigns for humans and for Jesse Himani. That's now available for you right now. You can go download it right now. And we believe, well, actually, I'll let this video do some of the talking.
Welcome to Pullstring, the world's most powerful platform for creating computer conversation. For more than half a decade, our mission has been to build connections between characters and audiences through the art and science of computer conversation. Now, we're excited to make our tools and cloud services available to you. Pullstring puts you in the driver's seat with an intuitive user interface and industry-leading technology, empowering you to easily design robust conversational experiences. It features comprehensive onboarding support to help you get started, sophisticated and fully integrated debugging tools so you can test your bot as you go, and the ability to self-publish directly to major messaging platforms. Today, Pullstring is being used to help doctors gain insight into patient experience, to allow people to chat with their favorite fictional characters, and to help brands reach customers in new and exciting ways. The sky's the limit. What will you create? Pullstring, powering computer conversation.
So we hope you all start authoring conversations in Pullstring real soon now. Again, I'm going to assert that we are now in a world where being able to speak and interact with computers through speech and through written text is just going to be expected. Whether you're, I picked this picture of the Echo because I think it's a pretty pure embodiment of that concept. Hello Barbie is actually a lot like an Echo. It's just a very task-specific Echo. It's a Wi-Fi connected speaker and microphone. Building experiences for things like the Echo, building experiences for things like Messenger, is just going to be a way that people are, in 10 years, it's like, oh yeah, I get entertainment that way, I do business that way, I check my bank balance that way. It's just kind of where we are. And we think that we've discovered a lot over the past 150 person years or so thinking about building computer conversation. Pullstring and the author environment is a suite of professional tools. We use the Photoshop analogy a lot. It is an expert tool for folks to build out a creative vision. You don't necessarily need to be a programmer, although we can go as technical as you want and harness anything you guys want to build. But it is built using the building blocks of conversation that have been the same for thousands of years. If you took a university course on rhetoric, if you have ever read a great novel, if you've ever watched a movie that had really snappy dialogue, if you're a fan of Aaron Sorkin, right? These are the atoms that we use to construct conversation, and these are the concepts that are presented as first-class objects in the Pullstring interface. And we really honestly believe that this is the best way to author computer conversation in the world. We can talk about a lot of the technology behind it, catch me after, and we can go deep. I think one thing that's worth calling out is that we use a hybrid ML and rules-based approach, and that's a deliberate choice on purpose. The black box nature of machine learning only approaches take the control away from creatives. I think there have been a bunch of fairly public instances of bots gone wild this year that are pretty good examples of why you don't want the machine making decisions for you completely. We intend to have the machine help automate things that are painstaking for the writers to do, but we really want the writers to have full creative control over the experience, because character, which is what you're doing, whether you're selling something or you're telling a story, you've got a character. That character is defined as much by what it says as how it handles what it doesn't know how to respond to. And a pure machine learning approach, I'm not sure gets you character. I think it gets you kind of an average across all things, which again, when you're trying to make creative choices, is almost certainly not what you want. As the video mentioned, it's one-click publish to all the major messaging platforms. We're integrating with Unity, so if you've got a VR or AR experience where you want language to be the way you interact, we've got you covered. And in a single-digit number of weeks, sometime this fall, you'll be able to publish Alexa skills. And so right now, everywhere people are thinking about authoring computer conversation, that's where we are. One last thing that's worth mentioning. We also have a full-featured web API. So if you're building your own bespoke technical system and you're not delivering on a messaging platform or over one of the IoT devices, you're building your own, you can also use content authored in Pullstring. And again, you can come find us afterward. We'll tell you all about it. And that's pretty much all we've got. We will be over at the couches in the back corner there at break time if you want to come see a demo or give us a hug or high five or something. Hear more about Barbie.
I hope we get hugs.
Yeah, hugs, mostly hugs. But please get in contact with us. Follow Pullstring Inc. on Twitter, and we're super excited to see what you guys are going to build. So, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks to the Pullstring team. Thank you. Do you want to take a question?
Yeah,
we have time for one question.
Sure.
Does anybody have a question for them? Let's go.
Hi, thank you for showing us more about Pullstring. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how users experience bots in a very linear fashion, and traditional script writing is very linear. So how do you handle some of the modularity that happens and how you create a linear experience, but there's a lot of variety that can be built into that?
Right, so we have this notion of interjection. So basically, like when we are creating a linear experience, we map it out very similar to the way that we would write a script. It's a beginning, a middle, and end. We do story beats, like we've done since screenwriting school. And then within those, we go, okay, what are the conversations that need to happen here? So Jessie Himani, for instance, she starts out seeing a cute boy, and you have to decide with her if she should talk to him or not. Like that's sort of chapter 1, and there's conversations within that, and then there's an apartment search, and there's stuff within that. But this notion of interjections is this layer that lives globally across everything of other things people might say, because obviously people like to push the envelope a little bit on both sides. They like to, ask other things randomly. So we have this notion where she could say something like, so what do you think I should do? Should I go talk to this boy or not? And if somebody writes in, where do you live anyway? Then she could, I live in wherever. It's really awesome here. Anyway, where was I? And then we go back to where we were in the linear chain. And so we're able to kind of jump away to this global repository of static information that the character needs as sort of their backstory. So we're able to access that, but still stay on a linear track when we need to. Any more questions?
Okay, thanks very much, guys.
Let's give another hand to this team here.